Guys, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel, Gardening Cold Spring Harbor. Welcome back to Long Island, New York, Zone 7A. In today's video, we're going to talk about all must-do tasks for home gardeners in the month of November. Hard to believe that November is finally here. But guess what, guys? I get so many questions from all of you asking, what is it that we should do as gardeners in the month of November to not only prepare our plants, our trees, our shrubs for the cold winter season, but to also ensure that our plants, our trees, and our shrubs will come back better than ever come next spring season. So for those of you looking for that online gardening channel that offers tips, tricks, easy yet proven gardening advice to take your home gardens to that next level, don't go anywhere, guys. Stick around with me today. Start with going below this video and clicking the subscribe button. If you are enjoying the content of my videos and never want to miss any more of my new upcoming garden videos, don't forget to click the bell icon as well. YouTube will notify you every single time I'll upload a new garden video. Now come with me, let's talk about all those must-do gardening tasks for the month of November. In fact, if you do not do these tasks now, this month, you might regret it later, come next spring season. I know that many of you guys, my loyal viewers and my precious subscribers, do live in different climates, different gardening zones. I know that some of us might have already seen first signs of snow, and yet others are still experiencing very mild, in fact, warm temperatures of 65 degrees and plus. So I know that many of us are busy doing quite different tasks. For some, the gardening season is well over for the year, yet some of us are still very busy bees, trying to still plant our garlic, try to still plant our spring blooming bulbs. Some of us are spraying down our trees and our shrubs. Some of us are still busy digging that soil and planting some of the fall season perennials. So we're all at different stages. However, in today's video, I'm going to address must-do gardening tasks for the month of November that apply to all gardening zones and all climates, whether you live in a colder climate or warmer climate. Here in zone 7A, we've been having very cold, low temperatures for the last few days. In fact, this morning, I actually had to pull out my winter jacket as the temperatures went down as low as 33 degrees Fahrenheit. However, my gardening job is never done, guys. So let's jump right into it and talk about that must-do job number one for the month of November. There is a concept known very well to every single gardener, and that concept states, while the ground is still workable, we should keep digging and keep planting. So what is it that we could still plant in the month of November? Not can, in fact, should. And that is our flower bulbs. More specifically, spring blooming flower bulbs. Our tulips, our crocus, our daffodils, our hyacinths, even iris can be planted now and should indeed be planted now. Don't worry, guys, if you miss out on that short time frame, say light snow even falls to the ground, you could still plant your spring blooming bulbs even with light snow in the ground. Guarantee it, promise it, guys. Even if you plant it with the light snow in the ground, they will be absolutely fine. They'll pop up and bloom for you come next spring season. And in fact, many stores, many smaller garden centers are going to start putting their spring blooming flower bulbs on sale, on clearance sale, to clear out their bulb inventory. So what a great opportunity to not only save money, but also to beautify our spring landscape. So the next must-do gardening task for the month of November is to prune our hydrangeas, guys. Here's an example of my beautiful, huge, broadleaf hydrangea. This stunner bloomed for us the entire summer and fall season. So now in the month of November, what exactly should you be pruning? I'm going to have a separate video on my gardening channel showing you guys exactly how I prune my hydrangeas. I have various type of hydrangeas growing in my home garden. I have the broadleaf hydrangeas, I have the pinnacle hydrangeas, I have limelight hydrangeas, you name it. I'm going to have a separate video showing you step by step how I prune my hydrangeas. However, in a few words to tell you, now in the fall, we must only prune off spent flowers. So once our hydrangea is done blooming, you see that the flowers are starting to turn color, starting to droop. That is exactly what we must prune now in the month of November. So only the flowers, especially if you know that the type of hydrangea that you're growing in your home garden only blooms on old wood, such as our broadleaf hydrangea. So if you prune the stems, the branches of your broadleaf hydrangea now, guess what, guys? Next year, you will not see blooms at all. Yes, you will see leaves and foliage, but no blooms. So again, when it comes to hydrangeas, be very, very careful when it comes to pruning, as you must know what type of hydrangea you have and whether that hydrangea blooms old wood or new wood. But again, make sure you prune off dead, spent blooms on your hydrangea shrubs now in the month of November before frost comes. So the next must-do gardening task for the month of November is to prune our roses, our rose trees, our rose shrubs. I have not yet started to prune my roses. Why? Because as you could see, the foliage, the leaves are still nice and green. The foliage has not yet started to turn color. Pigmentation has not yet started to fall off. And you know what? Leaves are always good. Foliage is good. It helps our plants photosynthesize. So you know what? I'm going to wait a few more weeks. And again, the color of the foliage now and the amount of foliage in a way tells us how durable, how cold hardy that specific rose variety is. So for those roses that are less cold hardy per se, or maybe are more prone to disease, more prone to dying off during the winter, those varieties most likely have already lost all of their foliage by now, or majority of the foliage. So this rose variety that I have over here growing, this variety is very, very cold hardy, guys. I never cover these roses for the winter season, not with burlap, not with frost cloth, nothing. I prune my roses down and let them be the entire winter season. And you could see how huge, how beautiful these shrubs are. And in fact, there are still new buds, there are still new blooms happening. But again, guys, if you see your roses foliage has started to change color to yellow, to brown, started to fall off, it is time to prune them for the winter season. What do you prune? First and foremost, you prune any and all of the spent blooms. If you see any leaves that look potentially diseased or dead, any black spot, any rust, cut them off, discard of them. Clean up any leaves of foliage from the ground that might have fallen under our rose shrub. We do not want any soil-borne disease or bacterial pests. Next, any branches that look dead, potentially dying, test them with a scratch test. I have a separate video on my channel showing you guys how to tell if a rose is dead or dormant. Use your fingernail to scratch the stem of our roses. If you see any green, that means your rose, that specific branch is still alive, guys. So anything dead, dying. We don't want our rose shrub to waste energy on dead branches, on spent blooms. Clean up your rose shrub, guys. Any branches that are too big, say all of them same height, and then you have one or two branches that are just growing out of control. Even it out. Prune it to the same height as the other branches. Now is the time to do that late fall pruning when it comes to our rose shrubs. So we just spoke about pruning our rose shrubs late fall to get them ready for the winter and to make sure that they come back for us healthy come next spring season. Now, some of you might be wondering, what about climbing roses? Do we need to prune climbing roses? And if so, how and when? So climbing roses, and I have a few growing in my home garden. This is an example of one. This is a beautiful stunner, very nice and tall on this trellis. Anyways, climbing roses are a bit different, guys. Majority of climbing roses do tend to bloom on old wood. And by now, they have already formed their buds for the next year. So climbing roses, we do not prune in the late fall as we would with other rose shrubs and other rose varieties. So unless you see single branches, like I have this one over here, that you could see just started to grow out of control and separated from the other branches. So this is an example of what you can and should prune off just to get your climbing rose under control. You could see over here, it's sticking out like a sore thumb. So this branch we would prune now. The rest, I would be very, very careful. I do not prune my climbing rose now in the late fall. I do cut off the spent blooms. Here you could see over here, these are starting to turn into the hibiscus. So these would need to be pruned off now in the late fall. Any possible signs of disease also need to be pruned off, like here. However, I do not prune down my climbing rose as significantly as I do with my other rose varieties. So what is the next must-do gardening task for the month of November? That must-do gardening task is to plant our garlic. For those of you who hadn't had a chance in the month of October, for whatever reason, and if you're thinking that it's now too late, it is not too late at all, guys. You're still on time to plant your fall garlic. And as you know, we plant our garlic in the fall and we harvest it here in Long Island, New York, Zone 7A, sometime around 4th of July holiday. So in the summer, I have already planted my fall garlic. You could see my raised garden beds over here in my backyard. And by the way, for those of you wondering what this is, so these are my kale. I have 3 different kale varieties growing in this raised garden bed, and they're sharing some spacing with my garlic. But otherwise, I have my garlic already planted over here in my raised beds. You know what, guys? Garlic is so cold hardy. Even if you hit freezing temperatures, even if there's light snow on the ground, guess what, guys? You could still pop in that garlic, and guess what, guys? It's going to be absolutely fine. It'll come right up and start growing come next spring season. So don't be afraid, and don't think that it's too late to still pop those garlic cloves into your home garden. It's never too late. Moving on to the next must-do gardening task for the month of November, and that is to sow and grow veggies and herbs from seed. Kale is just one example of a very cold, hardy crop. You could see over here in this kale, again, we hit almost freezing temperatures this morning, but you could see that the leaves do have like light frost on them right here. However, kale is so cold hardy. There are plenty of kale varieties that can thrive and grow the entire winter season, guys. So if you like growing crops and herbs such as kale, such as parsley, such as dill, such as cilantro, such as mustard greens, bunting onions, leek, spinach, some pea varieties, you could still sow and grow them now in the month of November. So what is the next must-do gardening task for the month of November? In fact, if we skip this gardening task, we might regret it come next spring season. And that gardening task is to sow and grow our herbs from seeds. Yes, even now in the month of November when the temperatures are much, much colder, there are so many herbs and so many crops that you could still sow and grow from seeds, whether you want to grow them in containers like I have growing over here, whether you have some space in your raised garden beds. I choose to sow and grow my herbs this time of year in containers. Why? Because in case the winter season will be very, very cold, bitterly cold, by growing my herbs in containers, I have that option to bring the container somewhere inside where it will be a bit warmer. So what can you sow and grow? What should you sow and grow now in the month of November from seed? Lettuce. There are multiple lettuce varieties. I have lettuce growing right over here. There is parsley. I have 2 types of parsley growing in containers here. I have thyme. I have cilantro. I have my bay leaf over here also growing from seed. So the herbs that I'm referring to that you could sow and grow now would pretty much be the same herbs that you would sow and grow early spring. You can also grow spinach right now. You could also sow and grow bunching onions. So not the onions, not the actual yellow or red onions or white onions. We're talking about the onions that you would use for the green leaf, such as scallions, for example. You can grow leeks right now, kale, mustard greens. There are so many things that you could still sow and grow. Worst case, if the temps dip quite a bit, you can always use the frost cover and hoops and cover up your crops with that protective layer. But believe me guys, even with light snow on the ground, the crops and herbs that I just mentioned will be absolutely fine. So go ahead and sow these gorgeous, delicious crops from seed now in the month of November. So the next must-do gardening task for the month of November is to pre-pot our containers with spring blooming bulbs. I have my pre-potted containers over here. They're all filled with gorgeous spring blooming bulbs such as tulips, hyacinth, daffodils, crocus. Imagine how much money you could save come spring season by pre-potting these containers now in the fall. Come spring seasons, these flowers will grow and bloom for you. You're going to have stunning spring containers for your home garden without having to go to a garden center or nursery and spend hundreds of dollars. You can even create a bulb lasagna recipe in your container. And for those of you who are not familiar with that term, bulb lasagna, I have a video on my channel, Gardening Cold Spring Harbor, where I show you guys step by step how you can create a stunning layered bulb container, also known as a bulb lasagna container. So if you're interested, check that video out as well, guys. So that would be the next must-do gardening task for the month of November. The next must-do gardening task for the month of November is to spray down our trees as well as our rose shrubs. So this spraying would serve as a preventative spraying. So what should we use to spray down our trees, our fruit trees, our shrubs, our rose plants? One of the things that we can use to spray down our fruit trees or our shrubs is orchard spray. Another fungicide that we can use is copper fungicide. So both of these are concentrates. We would use a spray pump of any sort. We would mix these concentrates with water, and we would thoroughly spray down the branches of our trees, the foliage, the trunk, as well as the soil below our trees. Same with our roses. Don't forget to spray down the foliage, the branches, as well as the soil below our rose shrubs. Especially if you know that this past growing season, you had to deal with pests or disease of any sort. We do not want to promote, those diseases. We don't want them to overwinter anywhere near our plants. So now is the perfect time to preventative spray our trees, our shrubs, and our roses. The next must to gardening task for the month of November is to prune our raspberry plants. Just be very careful when it comes to pruning raspberries. You must know what raspberry variety you have growing in your home garden. So the only raspberry variety that should be pruned is the one that blooms and sets berries on new wood. So now any branch that bloomed and set berries for us this growing season, this summer, is not going to set flowers and berries for us next year. So this is the case when you need to prune your raspberry bushes all the way down to the ground. Come over here, let me show you how I pruned them last year. You could see over here where the old branches were cut, and guess what, guys? It grew new branches. It set flowers and berries for me on new wood. So I have to do exactly the same this time around as well. Now in the month of November, you could see that the color of the foliage is changing as well, from nice green to the brown, sometimes burgundy pigmentation. So this is also a sign. This is telling you that your raspberries are indeed going into dormancy phase, into sleeping phase. Believe me, the buds are already forming on the root system below the soil surface. All the magic is already happening below the soil surface. So now would be the time to cut off the old wood and to let our raspberries rest. Come next spring, you're going to see new canes, new growth, and you will see much more berries come summer season. The next must-do gardening task for the month of November, and this task is super crucial and super important, guys. You should not ever skip this task, and this task is to dig up our Dalia flower tubers from underneath the soil. I have quite a few dahlias over here next to me growing in my south side garden. I have multiple varieties. You could see the different blooms over here. As you could see, the temperatures have gone down, which means it's the end for my dahlias blooming. You could see that the blooms are now spent. The foliage is starting to bend down. So November is the month to start digging up our dahlia tubers. Dahlia are warm weather, hot weather loving flowers. Once the temperatures start to go down, lower and lower and lower, we are risking losing our dahlia tubers once and for all. So dahlia flowers are not cold hardy at all. You must dig them up and store them in a dark place of the winter and beginning of spring season. Then once again, we plant them in our garden, or we pre-sprout them in a container and then transplant them, whatever you guys choose. So now I'm going to have a separate video on my gardening channel showing you exactly how I dig up and prepare my dahlia tubers for storage. So stay tuned for that video. For those of you who are wondering how I pre-sprout, how I plant my dahlia tubers, I have those videos still available on my gardening channel, Gardening Cold Spring Harbor. Check them out. I give you step-by-step instructions how you can pre-sprout your dahlia tubers in 1 gallon size containers, how you can start growing them in that container, and then how I transplant them into my home garden. So check out those videos as well, guys. So now, guys, this is the end of this video. Thank you so much for joining me here in Long Island, New York, Zone 7A. In today's video, we spoke about all must-do gardening tasks for the month of November. And as I said earlier, if you decide to skip any, if not all, of these gardening tasks now, this month, you might regret the outcome come next spring season, guys. For those of you who enjoyed the content of today's video, if you found this video to be helpful, useful, informative, show me that support by clicking thumbs up below. Leave your comments in the comment section as well. I read each and every single one of your comments, messages, and I personally respond to each and every single one of you. For those of you who haven't yet subscribed to my gardening channel, Gardening Cold Spring Harbor, what are you waiting for, guys? Super easy for you to do, super pleasing and rewarding to me, knowing that you guys watch my videos, that you follow my gardening channel, and that you enjoy the content of my gardening videos as well. Click the bell icon if you want YouTube to send you notifications every time I'll upload a new gardening video. Be healthy, happy, stay warm, guys, and be well, each and every single one of you. And happy gardening, guys, and I'll see you again in my new upcoming gardening videos. Bye, guys.